Hi, welcome to the first Business Greenhouse TV show for 2016. I'm still on a break, so this week we're going to do the best of Word of the Week segment. I did Word of the Week in the show because, to me, I really want to incorporate my faith into my business. So this is just pulling good quality content out of the Bible, making it into a business context. These are the best ones that we've had so far. Hope you enjoy. So I'm going to take you to Acts now. Acts 16:22. I'll read it to you, and then I want to give you my 2 cents worth. Acts 16 is Paul and Silas in prison, and it goes like this. The crowd joined the attack against Paul and Silas, and the magistrates ordered them to be stripped and beaten with rods. Okay, so this is not a particularly nice story. After they'd been severely flogged, that's not just flogged, that's severely flogged, they were thrown into prison, and the jailer was commanded to guard them carefully. When he received these orders, he put them into the inner cell, so not only did they go into the cell, they went into the hardest cell, and fastened their feet in stocks. Okay, so this is a pretty serious crime, pretty serious punishment here. About midnight, this is the bit I want you to catch, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. Have you ever felt like you're going through hell? Have you ever felt like there are trials and tribulations and it's just too much? Have you ever felt like things are going against you and it's too hard? Let me put it into perspective. Paul, Silas, flogged, severely flogged, beaten, put in jail, feet in stocks. And what do you see from these guys? Singing at that moment to God. So when we put that in perspective, if you're going through trials right now, what's your reaction? Is it to whinge? Is it to walk around like you've been sucking on lemons for a year? Does it look like it all over your face? Or do you turn that and do you make it singing? Do you praise God regardless? Let me tell you which one's going to free you to move on. It's not whinging. Singing and praising is going to liberate you. It's going to allow you to see it in perspective, and it's going to allow you to move on. That is my word of the week. We're going to go to the Old Testament now, one of my favorite places to go. I think we spend too much time in the New Testament, which is very inspiring, but there's a lot of absolute gold in the Old Testament that tends to be forgotten. So we're going to go back there. We're going to go to Leviticus 25, starting at verse 8. Now, this is the year of Jubilee, okay? And we're in that now, so that's why it's very topical. We're in the year of Jubilee. And it's a very exciting time to be alive. But I just want to pick up on something super practical that God said. See, in this stage, during Deuteronomy and Leviticus, God gives the most super practical instruction on how best humanity can work together. Okay, and here's just one of those. So Leviticus 25:8, and it's the year of Jubilee. Count off 7 Sabbath years, 7 times 7 years. So that the 7 Sabbath years amount to a period of 49 years. 7 sevens are 49. Then have the trumpet sound everywhere on the 10th day of the 7th month on the Day of Atonement. Sound the trumpet through your land. And then so it goes on a little bit further. So that's the concept. Every 7 sevens, we have a party in the 50th year, and it's the year of Jubilee. Go down a little bit further, and it tells us how to handle debt and borrowing. If you sell land to any of your own people or buy land from them, do not take advantage of each other. You are to buy from your own people on the basis of the number of years since Jubilee. And they are to sell to you on the basis of the number of years left for harvesting crops. So let me put it to you this way. We have a system now where debt upon debt upon debt upon debt upon debt is no problem. The US owe $19 trillion, 90 if you include unfunded liabilities. Australia, the numbers aren't quite the same, but as a percentage, we're heading in the same direction, okay? God gave us a system where debt cannot get out of control. God gave us a system whereby every 7 you count off, you send back your slaves, you send back your hired hands. every 49 years, 50th year, you give back the land that you borrowed. And basically what that is, that's like resetting the debt clock. That's making everyone's debt zero and starting again. So it can never get out of hand. Every 50 years, you go back to zero, you send everybody in, start again. But how do you borrow? So you could borrow land, but the price you paid was determined by the amount of years left until the end of the cycle when you had to give it back. So you paid less for some land closer to the year of Jubilee because you only had 1, 2, 3 years to harvest it versus right back at the 7 years of that cycle. So how do we put that into a modern day context? That's the way God's told us to do it. Now, back then it was land and slaves and staff, okay? Now it's running down to the local bank and getting credit cards and debts and things like that. Debt is not a sin, and I want to make that really clear. Debt is not a sin, therefore lots of debt is not a sin, okay? That's the baseline. But as much as it's not a sin, it's also not always a smart strategy. So I believe there's got to be times when we use debt, but there's also got to be times when we pay it down and we get ourselves back to a point, where we're not leveraged too high. And then ultimately, we need to get to a point where we have zero debt would be ideal, because then, the borrower is slave to the lender. So we want to make sure that our goal has to be zero debt. But if you want to use debt in the meantime, you don't want to be leveraging yourself to 70%, 80%, 90%, 100%, or even beyond that at some times, okay? So there'll be periods when you use debt, but the trap is that it doesn't stop, it keeps going. You've got to have a period where you acquire debt, but that has to stop, and you've got to go through a period where you pay it down and you get your debt levels really low with the ultimate goal of getting them to zero. I love how practical the scriptures are when they talk to us about things like debt and how to control ourselves. And we can take something that was written 5,000 years ago and make it applicable today. Today I want to take you to 1 Peter 4:10. 1 Peter 4:10. I'm going to read it to you and then I'm going to expound a little bit. And I guess I want to touch an area that generally doesn't get touched in terms of Christian business. Let me read it to you. Each of you should use whatever gift you've received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Okay? So each of you should use whatever gift you have to serve others. The number one value of the Business Greenhouse in our values list is that the call to business is a call of God. If you're called as an entrepreneur, that is a godly calling. And I want to validate that call. Like, there aren't many people validating that business is a godly call. It's a godly assignment, and that's what I want to be doing. See, for too long, it's been thought that the preacher is the highest call and everybody else is behind that. It's not biblically sound. If you're a business person, your role is just as important to the kingdom as the preacher. Like, your boardroom is as anointed as the altar of a mega church. You, a small fish and chip shop, is just as important to the kingdom as a mega church, with thousands and thousands of people. They're different. They're not better than others. In fact, let me put it to you this way. If you're a full-time Christian, you're already in full-time ministry. You chose ministry the minute you became a believer. It doesn't look like a pastor. It looks like something different. It could be for people in government. It could be teachers of schools. It could be whatever, wherever you find yourself. But for business people, like, business is a ministry. Now, you don't have to have a Jesus fish on your business card, and I recommend you probably don't. You can, but I recommend you probably don't. You don't have to say on your website. You can say we're a Christian company. You don't have to. You can do it by your actions, okay? But the thing is, not many people in my experience have had their call to business validated. It's almost second rate, but it's not. It's not biblically sound. If you are called to business, you are called to ministry. And that right there is where you are called to go and be salt and light. And it's not a Sunday thing. It's a Monday to Saturday thing. Sunday is where you go to rekindle with your friends and get fired up again. But Monday to Saturday, that is your domain. That is where you're called to be a minister. And if you've never had that validated, that it's just as important to the kingdom as a preacher, then I want to do that for you now. Your call is as important. The role that you are playing right now is helping advance the kingdom. That was a bit of a rant that I wanted to get off my chest at the same time as kind of, let you know that the anointing that you hold is so vital. We give people jobs, we create the asset base. When we employ people, we're paying off people's mortgages. When we employ people, we're helping people put their daughters through dance. Like, that has so much intrinsic value by itself. Our gift of business is first and foremost to the marketplace and secondary to the church. Yes, when we go into the business and win, we bring those spoils back and we fund our spiritual covering. We fund our local church. We can fund other things as well. We can fund missionaries, we can fund organizations, but we fund our local church. But our gift for entrepreneurship, our gift to go and turn nothing into something is first and foremost for the marketplace. And I'd love you to own that.